Hello, and thanks for joining me tonight. My name is Mike Tellerino. I am going to be your host this evening for a podcast that we have a very special guest with us, Steve McInnes. He is the past district commander, and I'm going to let Steve give you a little bit more details on himself. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you. Good to be here and talk with you, Mike, and be able to talk to veterans about this very important cause I want to talk about. I was district commander in District 4 of Illinois for 3 years. I am an All-American commander. I still work very heavily with veterans. I'm in post 2245, strong young post here in Grays Lake, and that's where I now am as a member of that post.
Awesome. Steve, you contacted me because you thought that we needed to get some information out to our veterans. Why don't you give us a little backstory on what you're trying to get out to them?
I will. I'm a spokesperson for the Bladder Cancer Advocacy Network, who is a advocate for veterans, particularly with the Agent Orange or presumptive diseases or toxins. In fact, what I'm going to do is read something what was sent to the Honorable Dennis R. McDonald, the Secretary of the Veteran Affairs, Department of Veteran Affairs in Washington, D.C. And I'll skip the first part, but as CEO of BCAN, the nation's oldest and largest bladder cancer patient advocacy organization, I commend the Department of Veteran Affairs for extending the deployment areas and date ranges for presumed exposure to herbicides encountered while serving our country, particularly as it relates to bladder cancer. Bladder cancer is the fourth most commonly diagnosed cancer in our veteran community. It impacts countless of brave men and women who served in areas now addressed by the extension of this coverage. Your recognition of the fact is a crucial step towards alleviating the burdens placed upon our veterans who have to endure the arduous task of proving their exposure to certain herbicidal agents to tie it to their diagnosis. Time and time again, we hear from Vietnam and modern warfare era veterans across the country who are dealing with the numerous challenges as a result of their bladder cancer diagnosis, highlighting the urgent need for this inclusion. And why I wanted to bring this up, what the letter is talking about is that the PACT Act, which is a tremendous act that is out there now for veterans, has several cancers. However, one of the things it doesn't have is bladder cancer. And bladder cancer is something that, to give you the analogy, the burn pits are like Agent Orange. And I'll tell you Mike's story real quick. Maybe that'll help to get a better understanding.
Sure.
As Mike knows, I had cancer for 6 years, off and on, but it was what they call a high-grade non-evasive. However, as the years went by, even with treatment, it became muscle invasive T3 and had to come out immediately to save my life, quite frankly. So I had what's known as a radical cystectomy, ileoconduit, and quite frankly, I lived with a bag for the rest of my life. But I've learned how to deal with it. This is a nasty disease, and the Bladder Cancer Advocacy Network is there to help veterans understand this better. We also have something that has been sent out in the VFW magazines. It's been in several different things. Mike, if you would pull it up, please.
Yep, let me get that up here. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is the call, if you will, to order to help. Were you exposed to burn pits or other toxins during your military service? And in this, which Mike has up here, and it's also electronically as well, you can pull this up and you can scan the QR code and take the brief survey. The reason this is an important survey is because it gives us a better understanding of who possibly could have bladder cancer, or at least a possible diagnosis of it. And it's growing. Bladder cancer has grown in Agent Orange Vietnam vets, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, as we all know, with burn pits in the Desert Storm wars that we have had. And I want to make sure that people understand that. So some of the call to actions that have been done is, as I told you, they sent the letter, but they've also sent what is known as the members of One Voice, Against Cancer, which is a coalition of over 50 public interest groups, which represent millions of cancer patients, researchers, providers, survivors, and their families, for the funding of cancer research and prevention of, hopefully, stopping cancer from people before it gets too far. One of the problems with bladder cancer, and this is a huge one, is that you might not even know that you have it. You might be having some irregularities with going number one. But the problem is that if you don't get it checked out, or if you don't get it looked at, it can manifest itself from the non-invasive to muscle invasive. That means it's gone outside the bladder wall.
Right.
And see, the bladder cancer is not, we're not talking gallbladder here. We're talking a bag that's in your body, which is used for your urine. And if there's abnormalities and things like that, and they start to pop up. To give you an example, I've had, I'm going to say, a total of 22 cystoscopies, which goes in and checks it. I had
Wow.
2 transurethral bilateral transfers. I also had, of course, the major surgery that I had. And this was all in a 6-year period of time. And even after that was over, they discovered it in my ureter as a result of moving from the bladder to the ureter. And this is exactly what we're talking about. And that was done. And when the surgery was done, I then had a immunotherapy for a year. But I'm on a mission. And my mission is to get veterans who have worked in these type of environments to learn and to understand what is needed for them. And as someone who's been through this, it is one of my primary missions to make sure that our veterans get this as a presumptive along with the other cancers. As the fourth
Steve,
leading cancer, you would think it would be in there
yeah.
automatically.
Is
But
this
it's strange.
is this now being covered by the VA or no?
Bladder cancer is covered by the VA as a presumptive Agent Orange, NEMR Act, the NEMR Act of 2021. Bladder cancer in the burn pits, no, it's not a presumptive. Yeah, you can obviously go to the VA, but you would not get any compensation whatsoever for it. So this is one of those that's in that hazy area, if you will. And everyone like me who's a veteran and gone through this knows this is the same thing all over again with the burn pits. And
What do we have to do, Steve, to get this added to that list of?
well, that's part of what I'm doing, Mike. One thing we have to do is to get our veterans, our brothers and sisters, to do this, to fill out this survey. And I also have several websites which are available where you can get in and learn more about this. We also, and I'll talk about the end bladder cancer. As you see a shirt I have on, "No one walks alone." And what the thing I want to point out is that none of this is free. We have to raise money. We have to be able to do that. As far as getting lobbyists like myself and stuff to DC, yeah, that's somewhat free. But we need to be able to have a voice. And the only way we can have a voice is to have enough people who say, yeah, we got to do something about this. I was on a blog for like 3 years prior to my bladder cancer being approved, Mike. And that blog was veterans who were working together, who were trying to come up with ways to get Congress to approve it. And that's kind of what we're dealing with now. So when the next Act of the PACT Act, in fact, as I am speaking, Veterans of Foreign War, American Legion, Iraqi IDBA, I've been in Washington, D.C., talking about what's coming up for the future on the benefits. However, bladder cancer is not on there because it hasn't been.
That makes no sense at all.
Absolutely right. From someone who's been there and knows, yeah.
Right.
And so I make sure that I let every one of these people know, who anybody I see who's an Afghan veteran, but they got to fill out that survey. In addition to that, though, I have a couple other things. If they go into bcan.org and under the policy advocacy area there, it'll tell you about BCAN being the leading voice for patients and families facing bladder cancer. actions to work to advocate cancer research and improve access, and to work through strategic planning with lobbying presence and community engagement. BCAN seeks to advance legislative, executive, and regulatory changes that improve the quality of life of bladder cancer patients and survivors. And then we get into the PACT Act, which of course is the Sergeant First Class Keith Robinson honoring our promise to address comprehensive toxics of 2022. And there things that are expanding in it. And for example, it says expands VA healthcare benefits for veterans exposed to burn pits and other substances. So yes, it does that in terms of if you've been exposed, but this is the key. It's just like with Agent Orange. Certain type of diseases are the only ones that are approved for presumptive. And bladder cancer is not one of them yet.
Steve, how long did it take them to get Agent Orange
I would say 15 years total, okay?
before
But,
they would honor
well,
Agent
once
Orange?
prostate got approved, okay? And this is something that I'll give you something people don't know. When you have the type of bladder cancer I had, they take your prostate out automatically. I don't have a prostate either.
Right,
So that's how serious this disease is.
right.
So it took like then it began. For example, I had in 2018. I put in, as told by my veteran service officer, to go ahead and put a claim in. It says it's going to get rejected, but once it's approved, then they'll go back and they'll do the reconsideration. The change happened in January of 2021 when the NEMRAC came out and showed that there was definitely a direct relationship between veterans of the Vietnam and bladder cancer.
Steve, what could we do as a veteran to help facilitate this to where is it going to take an act of Congress to get this done?
It's going to take an army. It's going to take an army.
I don't get the logic behind that.
Yeah, and that's why we've got people working now. We've already, just to give you an idea, this has already put publicized magazines like National VFW Magazine, American Legion, all those kind of magazines. This is in there now, but I kind of took this bull by the horns about 3 months ago, and I said, we can't just send out emails and stuff. We got to get the people and talk to them about it. So at service organizations, and like myself being an ex-district commander, and also with the state of Illinois, I contacted a state surgeon friend of mine for VFW in the state of Illinois, and he started the action moving, and we have it going to national. And we hope that at the national convention, there'll be more brought up about this. But there's already been quite a bit done already in terms of starting to lay the groundwork. But it may take veterans literally to go.
Can we write to our congressman?
Absolutely.
Can we write to
Yes.
the VA? Who would we go to?
You can write to your congressman. You can write to the VA directly. Any type of thing like that would be good. Word of mouth. And that's why I'm here tonight.
Right.
Word of mouth is critical on this to create the awareness to understand. Because most people like me, I didn't know what bladder cancer was, and I doubt if most people do. But what they don't understand is bladder cancer is just as serious and just as dangerous as lung cancer or anything like that. And obviously lung cancer, related to burn pits, I mean, it's pretty obvious.
What's the mortality rate on it?
Well, I'll give you an example. The mortality rate right now on bladder cancer non-invasive is about 5%. Okay, but if it becomes invasive, and there's two types of bladder cancer, and that's why I recommend anybody go to bcan.org and learn more about it. There's two types of bladder cancer. There's muscle invasive and non-invasive. However, in the non-invasive, which is just nothing, slow, okay, and what they call high grade. And if you have a carcinoma high grade, which is like a flat papillary is what it is, it can grow like that, which is what happened to me, even though I'd had two series of treatments, which they call BCG, and I thought I was going to have a third one, and I was up at Milwaukee, and I was talking to them because what happened was at that time my urologist had retired at Lovell, so I had to go up to Milwaukee. And so after they went through everything, I said, "So you're going to go ahead and just start me another BCG?" And they said no. And I said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Because this is too fast, and BCG is not working for you. And BCG only works 40% of the time, and if it's high grade, it's less than that." So
Mm.
this is opening, if you will, Pandora's box on what the situation is with this disease. But I have contacts at the Bladder Cancer Advocacy Network. By filling out these forms, you become part of their part of our group, if you will, on this. So anybody who has any questions or wants to do more, have them contact me.
Give us
And
give us your give us your contact information.
my contact information is Steve Mac 1027 at gmail.com.
Steve, why don't you post that after the
I
podcast
will, and I'll
so
put my phone
everybody
number in there
knows how
too.
to
I'll
reach
put my
out to
phone
that?
number in too.
Steve,
But Mike, one other thing I wanted to point out is there is going to be on April 27th, and asking how can we help? We have a walk to end bladder cancer. I am a captain for that, and I am starting to form my team.
when is that?
Anybody who wants to march on that day, whether it's virtual or they want to come and walk in it on April 27th, and again, I'll provide all the details and everything.
Yeah, please do.
I would love to have them join me. We're looking. My goal is like $1,000 this year is what I'm looking to raise. And for example, if I have 10 people who are part of my thing and each one raises $100, which by the way, raising $100 will get them a walk. No one walks alone shirt. I will make sure they get one so they can use it to do that. One of the things I did, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this?
Yeah, the little wristband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This little wristband says bladder Team Mac 1, bladder cancer 0. So
Good.
I had these made, and then I said, "You
I like
rock,
that.
thank you for your support."
I
So
like that.
I will do this for people as well. Again, it's all about getting the message out. If I've
Steve,
got people on here that are members of service organizations, please, by all means, when you're at your meetings, bring this up. To make sure you have the correct details, just contact me. And like you said, Mike, I'll put all my information in there.
please
But we're
do.
just starting this, okay?
Steve, what are some of the warning signs if I didn't suspect I had it? What should I watch out
Blood in
for?
the urine,
Are there any
blood
telltale
in the urine,
signs?
difficulty going to the bathroom. Those are the two biggies. But for me, I didn't have any blood in the urine, but I did have difficulty and like having to go a lot, etc. And some people think it's prostate. It is not necessarily prostate, particularly if you served in these areas that we're talking about. And if you look at the what was brought up here, if you serve when you go up and you look into the veteran thing that we have, Mike, if where you were in that area across the pond doesn't show up there, let me know because we'll make sure we put it on the list.
Right.
Basically, anybody who was over there was exposed. That's the bottom line.
Steve, I can't thank you enough for taking the initiative to reach out and get this awful disease added to the VA and for what they'll cover on, for our veterans. I mean, that's amazing what you're doing.
Bladder cancer, if you have bladder cancer, and you will get, it starts off at 100%. And you absolutely do not have to be a veteran to write a letter.
Right. Anybody
Do
can.
not. Yeah.
So make that clear so we know.
But bladder cancer, however, if you have residuals, then they start to rate it based on that. In my case, I lost everything, and I live my life with this helioconduit. I'm permanently 100% as a result of bladder cancer. I'm not so much worried about the 100%. What I'm worried about is an awareness and an understanding so that the veteran gets what they deserve. They went over there and served for us. And thank you for all of you for
That's
who have done
why
it.
I don't understand why they're so adamant about not getting this added to the list of covered,
I talked to
diseases.
some people fairly high up in this. Their thoughts were they wanted to get the PACT Act approved. If you recall, it was in a quick period of time there that they wanted to get it done. And they feel that they didn't put everything in there that they really wanted. And so what's going on, like I said, there now, but it's very broad. It's not nailing the specific items yet that need to be added to the presumptive list. But when you're the fourth leading cause of cancer and interestingly, for a Vietnam veteran, you're the third leading cause of cancer. So that tells you the same thing with burn pits.
It's amazing. So you're saying that there are predominantly more veterans with this from what did you say, the Vietnam era? The
Vietnam, and of course, dealing anyone that dealt like with the burn pits and stuff over in across the pond over there, and all the different wars that there were, they were definitely exposed. This can wait for years before it shows up.
right.
I'm 77 years old. I got bladder cancer at 70 years of age, and it wasn't old age. It was due to Agent Orange, and that's why I'm being compensated.
Can our veterans get compensated? Let's say they don't have any other reason for any support from the veteran. Is there any
You
way
need to
they
be in the
can get
VA system.
could they get compensated for this?
The only way you know that is by putting the claim in. And we're not asking anybody to put claims in yet because we want to get this on the docket first. But
Right.
once the docket's in, people start getting tested. But here's the thing, and this is very important. This may not show up for a long time. But now, if you get the information out there that creates the awareness, at least people have a better understanding of what it could be coming down the road. It could happen right away. It could happen. Most of us from Vietnam, it didn't happen to us till 40 years later.
That's amazing. How hard is it? I mean, I know a lot of guys that are on a disability and they had to fight tooth and nail to get a rating of 50%, 60%. I know to get a rating of 100%, you got to be you got to almost be dead.
They the rating for bladder cancer is 100% during the time of the bladder cancer, and then based on the residuals and based on comeback, and that's all determined through the VA through what I call the VA math, which they look at and do that. But let me give you an example. I was fairly well covered already, but then this put me. My bladder cancer was covered at 100% during the time, and then the residuals, and then finally with the chronic and everything, I'm probably like total of 40-50% on bladder cancer as a permanent now. So, but the thing is, during the time if you've got bladder cancer, more importantly, you get it taken care of so it doesn't become a muscle invasive, and that's what we're really
Right.
talking about here in creating that awareness.
What do you have to do you have to prove that you got it from your service?
No, if you are okay, the NEMR Act. What happened with the NEMR Act that made the Vietnam veteran, who was a Vietnam veteran, boots on the ground, not blue water, but boots on the ground for Agent Orange, was automatically anything that was a presumptive would be considered. If you had it, you'd be covered with it.
Right.
The same thing is what we're trying to do with the PACT Act, and of course by adding bladder cancer to the PACT Act.
Well, Steve, we need to get our little army going
Yep.
to get this recognized by the VA as something that needs to be covered by them.
Absolutely. And the word of mouth, social media, anything we can do, and maybe like we'll end up in Washington, D.C. down the road here. But right now, let's get the Army formed. And
Right.
that's where helping me out on the walk to end bladder cancer. We can raise money for research. We can do the things that we need to do. And we're starting
Well,
to, I'm calling it
you can count me
my
in.
team to go to do the mission.
Well, I think you're fighting a great cause, but I think you're fighting a huge battle.
I am,
You
but
are. But I think
I
you're
know, but
determined
the reason
enough.
they selected me the reason they selected me to help them with this, number one, is because I wanted to do it, and number two, I've been there, so I know the situation,
Well,
and
firsthand, you're
yeah,
got the knowledge
yeah,
firsthand
yep,
of what you went through,
right.
and hopefully, with this being passed, other veterans won't have to go through the same thing.
That's correct. That's the whole point.
Exactly, and I can't thank you enough again for what you're doing to help our fellow veterans. I mean, we're just not doing enough for them.
Nope, we got to get it.
When we have to fight to get something like this passed and accepted by the VA as a treatable affliction, that I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Nope.
Why do we have to fight tooth and nail to get something that happened to our veterans through the service of their country to now they got to fight to get the coverage they need or the medical attention they need?
And might keep in mind, before 2022, we didn't even have a PACT Act. I
Right.
mean, yeah, they started doing stuff with some of it, but PACT Act made a big change. Now we got to add to the PACT Act.
Well, again, Steve, you need to post on or send me the information and I'll get it out there for your walk run.
Okay,
I'll get it out there. I'll share it as many times as I can.
Mike, I'll also send you my story, which is on BCAN, so that
Okay.
people can read about my story.
Okay. I think that's important that they could see what you personally had to go through and enlighten them on ways that we could help them.
Right.
Again, thank you for what you're doing. It's I know you're putting your heart and soul into getting this thing accomplished and getting it accepted by the VA to service our veterans with this affliction. So,
Yes, sir.
well, Steve, I want to thank you for being my guest tonight. And again, if Steve is going to post where to send these letters, where to call, who to write. He's going to let me know about that walk run that he's got coming up. And I hope everybody takes a little bit of their time and actually joins this cause, because without the help of fellow veterans, this will never get passed.
That's right.
So we need to band together as a band of brothers to make sure that the VA recognizes this as something that our veterans need to get done.
Absolutely.
So if it wasn't for what you're doing, and the help you're getting from others.
And the Bladder Cancer Advocacy Network is really on top of this. Mark Story and Patricia Rios, who I don't know if they're on here tonight, they might be, are really the ones that started getting the engine running and got hold of me 3-4 months ago. And so they've done a lot.
Well, you're a good spokesperson for this, no doubt. It's a shame you had to go through what you're going through to learn about this. You know what I mean? But thanks to you and what you're doing, hopefully we could save some of our fellow veterans from having to deal with this.
Amen.
And get it treatable and recognized as an affliction from the VA.
Correct.
Steve, get that posted. Get me that information. I'll share it on our page, and try to get the word out as much as we can.
I will do that. So you want me to go ahead and post that information on Facebook?
Please. In fact, right after this podcast ends, you'll be able to go on the K9 page.
Okay.
And put it in the comments.
I will do it right there.
Steve, thank you so much for doing what you're doing. God bless you.
Thank you, Mike.